Hey everyone, welcome back to Noiseberry Wrestling. It's the end of the year, which means it's time for me to go over my top 5 matches of the year. I will say I'm recording this just before the end of the year, which means I am actually recording it before AEW World's End on December 30th. I don't think anything on that would make my top 5. Something might make an honorable mention, but I thought, I have to, or I want to do my predictions video on the 30th for at World's End. And I also want to have some time off before the new year kind of thing, so I'm doing it a little bit early. But if anything on that show would make my top 5, I'll leave a comment about it. It's been another good year for wrestling. Crowds seem to be fully back in attendance now after a strange few years of COVID crowds or no crowds at all. So New Japan is more enjoyable to watch again now. I guess the big thing is even saying that, I've probably watched less New Japan and Noah this year than I have in previous years, just because AEW's started adding so much more wrestling to their schedule. When AEW first started, it was 2 hours of Dynamite and 4 pay-per-views a year. Super easy to consume. But now it's 2 hours of Dynamite, an hour of Rampage. I don't watch Rampage. 2 hours of Collision. I probably watch about half the Collision episodes. And at this point in late 2023, they're doing a pay-per-view every year. So it's just a lot to keep up with, especially if you have any other interests apart from wrestling, like I do with video games. I've pretty much by the time I've watched my AEW stuff, I've kind of had my wrestling fill. So I've fallen very behind on watching a lot of New Japan. I've barely watched any Noah this year at all. But having said that, I definitely made an effort to track down any big matches that I heard good things about. So my list is a lot of AEW, but I made sure to watch other stuff, and they'll be in my honorable mentions. This was a really tricky list to put together, actually. There was a lot of good matches, especially in the last 4 months of the year, it feels like. I don't know, last third of the year has been really strong. So I will go 5 all the way down to 1 before I get to my match of the year. I'll touch on a couple of honorable mentions. I have a big list of them. If you want to look at the full list of honorable mentions, look in the description. I'll put it down there. But I'll just go through a couple of the standouts, and then I'll do my match of the year. So my number 5 match of 2023 was FTR versus Bullet Club Gold on AEW Collision July 15th in Calgary, Canada.
Here is the power! Will this be the glory? No! Flash! Cover! Can he find him? Oh my God! What he does!
I was there for this match. I talked about it in my review recap video on Collision in Calgary. I said watching it live, it seemed like a good match, but nothing crazy. And then obviously I got home from the show and saw everybody online raving about the match. So rewatched it about a week later and was blown away at how good it was. This was the best 2 out of 3 falls for the tag titles, and it really was exceptional. There was a lot of exceptional matches this year, but this one got pushed a little bit higher just because it's one of the highest rated AEW matches of the year, on Cage Match at least, and I was there for it, so I felt like I had to mention it, and it's more meaningful for me because I was in attendance for it. Number 4, I have Bryan Danielson versus Ricky Starks in a strap match at AEW All Out on September 3rd.
The blood streaming down his face, but not bothering Danielson at all. As across the Danielson punishing Starks in the ropes.
All Out was that really weird AEW pay-per-view that came a week after the massively hyped Allin in London. And it was probably one of the best shows of the year. It looked like such a nothing card, and it was pretty galling being expected to pay for it a week after another pay-per-view. But boy, was it a great pay-per-view. And I actually had a couple of matches from that show on my list, but this one, the strap match, was so violent. I remember like gasping multiple times in it, like seeing some crazy shots with the strap that you just would hopefully not see again because it was very, very violent. But a real standout match for me for sure. Speaking of violent, number 3 is Hangman Page versus Swerve Strickland at AEW Full Gear on November 18th.
Oh, no, that cinder block is there. Oh, that's it. That is it. Driver, come on.
This was a Texas death match. I actually watched like a decent bit of proper deathmatch wrestling. I watched GCW, I watched a bit of Freedoms, I watched some BJW. So when you hear an AEW deathmatch, you know it's not going to be that crazy, that violent. This match was that violent. There was no, going through glass panes, no light tubes or anything. But man, this was a ridiculous match. Super violent, super bloody. Again, multiple moments where I was having to like gasp and like shield my eyes from some of the stuff I was seeing. Not for the faint of heart, but God, it was a good match. Number 2 and number 1 are quite interesting. I had a feeling these would be in number 2 and number 1, but I wasn't sure what order to do them in. And so actually earlier this week, I watched both these matches, my number 2 and number 1 matches, back to back to see which one I liked the best. And so that has gone to my match of the year, but the very, very close second place, my second favorite match of the year is Will Ospreay versus Kenny Omega at AEW Forbidden Door on June 25th.
Cutter! No, Omega anticipates counter, snap, dragon, no, Ospreay lands on his feet. Oh, God. Deep arm drag. Omega transitions into the head scissors. Ospreay, phenomenal.
Which means you can probably guess what my match of the year is at this point, but we'll get to it. When I watched this match, I distinctly remember being super sucked into it, and whoever was doing the timekeeping, I think it was the New Japan timekeeper, he came on the mic and he said, 30 minutes have passed, 30 minutes remain. And I was like, this has been 30 minutes? It felt like it had been 10 minutes. It had just completely flown by. Also, a fairly violent match. You'd expect wrestling matches to be violent. But a lot of the matches on my list have kind of went above and beyond for that. Both Ospreay and Omega bled in this match. For the longest time, I would have said that Kenny Omega was the best wrestler of all time. I think probably pre-injury and pre-injury break, I would have said he was the greatest wrestler. But obviously, he's slowing down a bit. At the time of recording, he is out with hopefully healthily recovering from diverticulitis. Best wishes to Kenny Omega. But I think even he would comfortably say he's not at his peak anymore. He's kind of on the downward trajectory towards the end of his career. But Will Ospreay, I think, is comfortably taken the greatest wrestler in the world spot this year for sure. He's had a ridiculous year. Okay, like I said, I'm not going to go through all of my honorable mentions. I just want to give a shout out to a couple of them. First, just so I can say that yes, I have watched some Noah. I thought Kaito Kiyomiya versus KENOH from their New Year 2023 show on January 1st was really, really good. Speaking of death matches, I had Rina Yamashita versus Masha Slamovich at GCW Cage of Survival 2 on June 4th on my honorable mentions list. That was a really good death match. Great sports entertainment angles afterwards, so just a fun match. Also had Katsuhiko Nakajima versus Kento Miyohara from Noah One Night Dream on my list. I think if this was a top 7 matches, because I don't really know which I'd put here. If this was a top 7 list, I would have probably had Bryan Danielson versus Zack Sabre Jr. and Darby Allin versus Christian Cage, both from Wrestle Dream, on my list. They didn't quite make it because I needed the other 5 on my list, but those were great. And so we come to my match of the year, which, if you followed wrestling this year and you understood what I was talking about when I said I'd watch my number 2 and number 1 back to back to see which would go in which spot, you'll know what this is. But my number 1, just like number 2, is Will Ospreay versus Kenny Omega from New Japan Pro Wrestling at Wrestle Kingdom 17 on January 4th.
Oi! Oi!
Kidney punch.
Yeah, the kidneys.
And hold on now. Oh, Jesus! Good Lord!
Like I said, I watched them back to back to see which I liked better. It was very close, but even rewatching this match, I was gasping so much more than I was in the Forbidden Door match. The New Japan match also has the benefit of having New Japan production and camera work. AEW camera work is obviously nowhere near as good as New Japan's camera work. It's also probably not even, well, WWE's is pretty bad. But AEW camera work is passable, I guess. But yeah, New Japan's camera work is an actual art. Even if the matches were identical, if one was shot with New Japan style and one was shot AEW style, I'm gonna prefer the New Japan style because the camera work and everything is so good. Presentation wise, it just felt like such a huge deal. Kenny Omega back in the Tokyo Dome for the first time in a couple of years. Kenny looked great. He was very recently back from recovering from injury. I can't say enough good things about this match. It also completely flew by. When the timekeeper on and said whatever the times were, because they do every 5 minute in Japan, it definitely did not feel like 5 minutes between those intervals. So there you go, that is my match of the year for 2023, Will Ospreay versus Kenny Omega from Wrestle Kingdom this year. So good, and also really kind of catapulted Ospreay to have his best year career-wise from this match. This was just the start of a phenomenal year for him. There you go, those are my top 5 matches of 2023. If you want to see the full list of honorable mentions, make sure you check the description. If you're interested in things outside of wrestling, check out my gaming channel for top 5 games of 2023. You can also check out my music channel for my top 5 albums of 2023. I'll have links to those in the description below. Let me know if you agree, disagree with any of the matches on this list. Let me know your top 5 in the comments below if you'd like. Thank you guys very much for watching. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.